Hey guys, what's up? Stan here from Rocky Creek. Welcome back to the homestead. And it's the first time we've been in the garden this year. Pretty excited about that. I actually got these raised beds a few weeks ago, but the weather in our area here in Virginia is still a bit chaotic. The old wisetail rule of thumb is that you don't put plants in the garden in Virginia until Mother's Day. And in the first 3 or 4 years I've been doing this, that's proven pretty darn close to being accurate. So what I tend to do is usually first week of April, I start my seeds, and then the first week of May, I push it a little bit early. I put my stuff in the ground at that point in time. But what I usually use this time to do, kind of this month leading up to all that, or in between the seeds being ready, is getting the garden prepped, which is going to be these additions of 3 additional raised beds to our garden from, I don't know how you pronounce it, either Vegega or Vegega. I'm thinking it's Vegega.
Or maybe it's Vegega.
I don't think that's it. So we ended up going with 3 different beds. 2 are the same size, 1 is smaller. The one that we put together, if you follow us on Instagram, you saw a video of me and the kids putting this one together because it's small, so I could do it inside the house, no problem. And this was, I think they call it their 4-in-1 system. It's a 32 inch. I went with it in a way of 32 inches by 32 inches and did a square. I think the other configuration you can do is one of the ways is like a 5x2 or something to that effect. But then the main ones that I went with were 2 of these that they call 9-in-1 configuration. And I'm going to do these in their long way, which I think is 8 feet by 2 feet, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out when we pull these open. So I'll talk real quickly about why I went with these instead of adding more of what we already got last year, which we bought at a local store. So let's talk about that real quick. So bear with me guys, it's a little bit windy, but these are the raised beds that we bought from a local store last year where I had some coupons and tried to get a good deal, and they've done pretty well. I mean, they're pretty thick galvanized metal. They went together kind of a little bit different than what these are, and we really enjoyed having a raised bed here.
It's got some rabbit poop in there.
We like this particularly for like leafy greens and root type vegetables. So why didn't we just buy more of these though if we were pleased with them? So these are only, I think, 6 feet by 2 feet if I'm not mistaken, and they were still about $80 a piece. And I'm not really sure how long they're going to last, and they're more squared. These ones have the rounded design. They have a few different configurations. I like the color of this particular green color, and I like that it had this rubber coating on the top as well. And these are very lightweight, and they actually feel much more sturdy than the walls to the other ones. And then it says right on here on the box, a few of the other reasons why we went with this is that the materials have been tested to be eco-friendly and food safe. They're supposed to last for 20 plus years, which for me, I don't know, I might be dead by then. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. And then of course that they're supposed to be, you know, high wear resistance, which I'm assuming goes with the 20 plus years, and they're easy to assemble. So honestly, the biggest reason for me was the size of them, the 20 years, the food safe, and cost-wise compared to a lot of other similar companies that offer raised beds such as these that I've seen a lot online, they seem to have the more reasonable price. So the way our garden's laid out, my plan is to run these raised beds all along this edge right here. And I particularly want to have some raised beds down in here because if you were with us from the very beginning, when we have heavy rains, the back corner down here tends to flood and the water will build up back over to here. And my thought is 2 things. Number 1, if I have stuff in a raised bed, less chance that stuff will get submerged underwater and be completely lost. The second reason is that although our ground has turned out to produce well when we do gardening, anything above the ground tends to do really well. Anything that's a root type vegetable, it grows, but not to the way that we really would like for it to do. Even though I got a lot of the ground softened up, there's still quite a bit of rock. And when those roots try to grow down in there, the rocks either hinder the growth or they get all crazy looking. You get those carrots that got like 3 ends that are pointed all which ways. And so when we did the ones in the raised bed, it proved to be very successful. So our plan is to utilize these raised beds for flowers, root crops, and leafy greens. And we can do a lot of stuff in those, and I want to keep expanding that. And then that in turn frees up a whole lot of space out here in our normal garden, where Chloe dog is, and to where we can start raising more stuff. And we're slowly expanding more and more and more. And eventually, as I get stuff to break down in this big behemoth, we can even use it as well. So that's kind of the reason for why we're doing this. But now let's show you how easy it is to put these together. Me and the kids put the other one together in about 12 minutes. And most of that was fighting Griffin, who was trying to destroy everything. So we don't have Griffin, so we should make good timing because these ones are bigger. So me and Madison, we get these things put together real quick, show you how quick they go together, and show you how we plan to lay these out here in our garden. Look how much easier that was.
Whee! Oh my gosh, that's a lot of pieces.
I will say this, whoever came up with this packaging, they deserve a raise, because the fact that you can compact an 8-foot bed into a box nice and tight like this is pretty darn impressive. And then each inside of the boxes, it has a guide for building these things, and it actually lists all the beds. So if you end up losing your book to this specific bed, they're all in here, and so you should be able to work it out between the different books that you have. That certification?
Yeah, that's weird. It's like, no, like it looks like a weird U. Goodbye, Beck. My. Ooh.
I guess. All right, so here's basically all the components. You got your rounded sides, your flat sides. You got some support rods that'll go across the side. I guess this one being smaller didn't need it. And maybe when you get to a certain size, you need the support rods to give it extra stability. This will be the nuts and bolts and the little tool to tighten it down. Now you will need a Phillips head screwdriver. I did need that for the last one. And then this is the rubber gasket that goes across the top. And if you end up needing to cut this, you need something good, because I was impressed when I cut this one. It actually has some metal reinforcement inside of this rubber. So you're not gonna be able to cut it with just some plain old scissors probably, unless you can get it perfectly in between little metal pieces. So that's all there is. We're going to get this put together. You can see Miss Madison's already starting to peel off the plastic. It does have some plastic on it to protect it, so you need to get that pulled off, but we're going to go ahead and start busting it out. Chloe looking all disgusted.
Put the thing ahead.
All right, so we got 4 rounded sides and all straights, and we're gonna just bolt these together now. And it really doesn't take too long once you get going with it. And what I found works best is, instead of using the the Phillips head yet, is just get all of your screws going, get them finger tight, and then come back through and tighten them all up at one time at that point. So you're going to run the screw head on the outside, bolt to the inside, so you got a nice flush exterior.
Oop. Oh, it's right here. Got it. They're not lined up.
We'll get them.
There we go.
They'll line up as we go.
That one's kind of lined up. It's fine. Can you make that tiny little hole? That's a tiny little hole. Can you make it? Okay. Made it. Stop it.
So if I'm understanding the directions right, basically all you do is, on this top one right here, is you eliminate the nut, and then you just thread this on in replace of the nut. And depending on which configuration you're doing, is you can add 2 of these together if you're going squared, and it's got these connector pieces, or we're just going to plan to run it 17 inches wide, and I'm pretty sure I mean 2 foot wide, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be that. So we're just going to hook this on right there. All your bolts all the way around are going to go very much the same, where you're going to do your screw, washer, and then your bolt on the inside. Your support, I just threaded the rod directly onto there, but of course you can't spin the rod when you do the other side, so you won't use the nut. You'll push the screw straight through, line it up, and then you're kind of going to have to hold some pressure, and you're going to have to use your Phillips head screwdriver to thread that into the rod. And then you're good to go with that. So that's about the halfway point of the bed. Basically, we're going to duplicate it on this side, and then that bed is the exact same as this one. So I'm just going to drop it on the time lapse, and we're going to bust this thing out. Well, there it is, bed all complete, other than we got to run the rubber gasket on the top. You can see how the supports are equally spaced within there. Tighten down all the bolts, and now it's all really sturdy. And so we're just going to get that rubber gasket put on the top. It's a lot longer than I was expecting, so this thing may end up going this way, and I may run them side by side, but we'll figure that out once we get them all put together completely. Alright guys, through the magic of YouTube, we are all done. All 3 are completed. Now we're going to get them moved. I got to figure out how I want to configure them. I have an idea. And I also found that these brace pieces serve as excellent one-man movers for these things as well. I'll show you. So they're almost spaced perfectly where I can get in here and grab it. And this is how I moved the first one I did, because they're really lightweight anyways. But this just makes it a lot easier, because it's not that they're heavy, it's just that they're more awkward. But I think I'm going to try to put one long one here, put this guy in between. So I think this scenario is going to work out, and what I'm kind of looking for is that I can walk around to tend to everything if I needed to. So there's at least enough walking space. So guys, what's my first impression of these raised beds from Vegega is that honestly I'm pretty pleased with them. I wanted a bed that gave me a greater depth than what I have with our galvanized ones. So the 2 of these give me that. And that's just in case I want to run a further root crop, I still have that option. Now we're still going to have to get these things filled up. I'm going to add a base layer of some sticks and leaves. We got a bazillion leaves around here, some wood chips. I'll probably do that about halfway. And then we'll come back with a load of like compost or garden mix to fill up the rest of these. I still got one of the galvanized beds I need to finish off too. So I'll get a dump load of that brought in here, get this put in. But we're now in the moment of prepping for a lot of the garden. Pros and cons of these beds so far on my early opinion. Pros is, obviously they look wonderful. I really like this green color. Mrs. Rocky Creek even came down while I was down here, and she had seen them for the first time and complimented how much she liked the color as well. Sturdy wise, they seem very sturdy. You saw me pick the one up. I mean, there's a little bit of flex in them if you really pull on it, but in terms of a garden bed, they're going to do just fine, and they're less flex than what I have in the other ones that I already have, despite them being bigger. Quality of them, thus far, I'm pleased with them, particularly in the top ridging and the stiffness of the panels. If there was one negative I would say about them that I have noticed is that when you get a painted color is that the paint does not seem to be the most durable. It doesn't take much to scratch it at all. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. End of the day, it's in a garden. I don't need to look like perfect, but I do want it to hold up for a decent, or at least look pretty decent from far away. But in my opinion, from what I was able to find, these were the most affordable for this style. And my hopes is if they last for 20 years, then it'll be a big savings down the road versus having to keep replacing wooden beds, especially since they are supposed to be food safe. A little bit about them, just to be fully transparent, is from what I have read, they are not manufactured here in the United States. They are manufactured overseas, but they have several distributing facilities here within the United States. So what part of what gets done where, I don't 100% know about. I know there's at least 3 distributors here in the United States. I don't know if they do any manufacturing of their own, but technically this is not an all American made product, if you will. But the thing is when you're starting a homestead and we're still very much in an infancy stage, I say a couple years is still infancy stage, especially because we work full time, is stuff costs money. And we have children, we got stuff to pay for. And at the end of the day, I got to compromise. Do I want to support full American 100% if I can? Absolutely. But at the same token too, I got to get started with my garden to some degree. I got to expand some, and I got to cut a little bit of costs where I can. And for me, I'd much rather work on high quality stuff for my animals and high quality stuff in my seeds, and maybe go a little bit outside of what I would personally usually do for a garden bed. But for me, it was the best price. I went with it, we rolled with it, and hopefully if you decide to give them a try, you'll be pleased too. I'll throw a link down to their website down below, so that way you can find out more information for it from there. But guys, we appreciate y'all hanging out. Hope you found this interesting. We look forward to getting these things filled up with you and see what all we can grow in them this year. I hope your garden's starting out well. If you know, send me some messages. Let me know what you got going on in your garden or what new changes you're trying to add this year. So guys, we appreciate you hanging out. Hope everybody's doing well, and we'll see you here real soon on our next episode. Thanks, guys.